So welcome to Global and Leaders Group. We have here top leaders that are making a difference in the lives of others. So we have 8 amazing entrepreneurs coming from different places in the world. And let me introduce you to them. So we've got Chasi from Costa Rica. We have George Rogers from America. Patrizio Gelosi from Italy. Christina Demetriades from Cyprus. David Andrew from England. Justin Breen from America, who is also the co-founder of Global and Leaders Group. And myself, Sonia Saidi from France, and based in Spain at the moment. So very excited to see a lot of people are coming in and join the webinar. So please give them a warm welcome and let's begin. COVID-19 has affected the entire world on a distinct level, but the interesting thing, sorry about this, is why some countries have responded more effectively than others. So I'm going to ask my teammates who would like to jump first and answer the question. Go ahead, Luis, por favor.
Gracias. So good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. So I would say, let me just share some numbers, put that our reality into perspective for everyone. So as of yesterday, we have 20,400 confirmed COVID-19 cases, out of which a third have recovered and 2/3 remain active. We have 191 reported deaths, COVID-19 people that have died. And that's roughly a 0.9% mortality rate, which I think is pretty good. So what has made Costa Rica successful as far as fighting the COVID-19 pandemic? I would say 4 reasons. Main reason, definitely putting health before the economy from day one. So very early on, Costa Rica decided to follow the recommendations of the World Health Organization as well as the Pan American Health Organization as far as early detection, testing, isolation, traceability of contacts, and providing the necessary public health measures. Reason number 2, early nationwide response by all branches of government. Just again, just to give you some insight on dates, March 6th, the first reported case of COVID-19 comes in the news, but by late February, Costa Rica had already put in place different protocols for contact tracing and required businesses to adopt some disinfection measures. March 9th, only 3 days later, 10th case, and mass gatherings are suspended. By mid-March, when our first reported death from COVID-19 comes in the news, Costa Rica decides to declare a state of emergency, closes the borders to tourists, and cancel in-person school, amongst other measures. So that's your second reason. Third reason, a strong public health system. Costa Rica has 30+ hospitals and clinics throughout the country and has 1,000+ pretty basic community level healthcare units that provide assistance to 90% of our population, and that includes low-income Costa Ricans. So that's key. And the fourth one, and maybe probably I would say not less important than the other 3, is additional institutional support from decentralized government entities. Just to mention a couple, we have a national liquor factory, as we call it, FANAL, that produces one of the local liquor here called Guaro. And so immediately they switched their production to produce alcohol gel, and the post office distributed it throughout the country. So that's one. Another one, National Learning Institute, INA, is a technical education institution, government run. Immediately turns and produces clothing for hospitals. and maybe last one, public universities developed started developing respirators for ICUs. So I think that the quick response of the government was key. And again, obviously, first and foremost, putting health before the economy. Our reality, yep.
Yeah, hold on a second. I would like to ask, since you're putting this out about the health, how the government has been taking over. What about you guys, since you're here? How is your country have been looking after the COVID-19?
Let me
Yes.
respond to Luis. So that was a really good opening, and I think the most important thing, based on what I heard, is health before economy from day one.
Yeah.
Again, I'm 30 kilometers, 22 miles north of downtown Chicago, and most of my conversations are with people outside the United States. I just talk to entrepreneurs around the world constantly, and it's really interesting. We have Patrizio on this call who was in lockdown. And I can't wait to hear what you say. He had wife had a baby during lockdown, and then George, who I believe is based in the southern part of the United States, and then Rosemary in Australia, whose country was on lockdown, or at least parts of it, then not on lockdown, and now parts of the country are back on lockdown. So very quickly, from that perspective, I have this global thing. The term that keeps coming up from people I talk to outside the U.S. is American exceptionalism. Not what I say, it's what other people are telling me. So really great for entrepreneurship. Never give up, keep grinding it out. That's why America has so many great entrepreneurs and so many great businesses. For COVID, it's been the worst thing ever. I cannot tell you how many of my friends, business owners, think they're immune to this disease, going out in public, not abiding by health regulations, and trying to open schools too early. And you're seeing the results of that in the United States right now, with cases high, with schools not being able to reopen. And my wife's a pediatrician as well, so I see it from a medical perspective as well. So it's been a really interesting take, talking to people outside the U.S. about what's going on in the U.S. So thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah. Thank you. Patrizio, would you like to jump on it?
No, just I said when he mentioned my daughter, in fact, yeah, I became father around 3 months ago, exactly in the worst period, in the peak, the worst period of the COVID emergency. So it was quite hard. You may imagine it's our first daughter, so it's supposed to be hard by itself. So, but additionally, we had this hurdle put on because it was exactly when the hospital near here was closed, so we have to move to another hospital and so on. So just, but at the end we did, and our daughter is fine. So happy ending at the end. Happy ending,
yes. Quite challenging because in Italy was huge in terms of the virus, and a lot of people have been affected, and having your wife pregnant during the COVID-19, the lockdown, was not easy, but as you said, you made it. And Luis, what he shared about putting in the front line and actually the health before anything else is the main thing. It's really the main thing in terms of leading the country and looking after the people. Who would like to jump in the conversation? Yes, go ahead, Christina.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. It's nice to be with everyone here and listen firsthand experiences from around the world. I'm not going to talk as a COVID expert. I'm a coach and trainer. So what I'm going to share is based on my experience as a citizen and also from my interaction with people, my clients. My clients are also abroad, outside of Cyprus, but what I want to share is based on everything I've absorbed while being here, while adding to the conversation. I think Luis indeed made an excellent introduction. I will not compete with that in terms of condensity of information. Let me give you some numbers though. In Cyprus is a very small island in the southeast of the Mediterranean. It's the eastern island in the Mediterranean. We have roughly, very roughly, 1 million population. We're very small. And I will give you statistics that are from the Republic of Cyprus. We have a division in our island, so I cannot give statistics for the whole of the island. The statistics I will give are from the Republic of Cyprus, which is the southern part. The northern part is occupied by Turkey, and there is the non-acknowledged Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, and it's also been affected. So in the Republic of Cyprus, we've had 1,200 cases roughly, and about 850 people recovered, and we've had about 20 deaths, which for some of you, it will sound as nothing, but because we are such a small country here, these numbers are very significant. And in fact, right now we're in the second wave. We're in the second wave. We have a city that has been affected, and because Cyprus is so small, you know, this city is just an hour away from the city where I live. The distance makes everything, you know, we're all together. It's very hard to separate, even though there is talk of locking down that particular city. In terms of answering your question, Sonia, I want to bring in a different dimensions. One thing that I will mention very briefly and then move on, because I feel it doesn't apply to anyone else. It's a unique situation in Cyprus, is the political division. And because there is this political separation between North and South, even though we're a tiny island, there has been and there is dissonance between the political leaders of either side of the divide in handling COVID-19. And I think this has affected it, because if we had united in terms of dealing with it as an island, you know, when you are an island, it's easier to cut off from everyone else and then, okay, look within and how to deal with it. We haven't done that. So even though the two sides have dealt with the COVID situation differently and relatively well, I think we could have done a lot better had we united, at least for COVID-19. For no other reason. I'm not here to say political views, but for this health emergency, I think it would have been great. Another dimension that again comes from the Cyprus experience is the economy. And the Cyprus economy, I'm talking holistically now for the whole island, it depends majorly on tourism. We are a beautiful country, beautiful climate, beautiful mountains, beautiful beaches, amazing beaches actually. And this is what is our bread and butter. We take care of tourists. So now with COVID, the Republic of Cyprus has very well supported financially the businesses and professionals during lockdown, but from some point onwards, they said we cannot anymore. So it was not practically possible to put health before economy. There was no room for survival. So now we have opened our airports, the tourists are coming in, and some of them are from countries which are considered to be dangerous. And we have numbers rising daily. Every day we have about 25 new cases. And it's quite worrying because, you know, a few months ago, we kept hearing that the hot climate will protect us, and you know, you need cold climate for COVID to be spread easily. But in our case, we're in a heat wave right now, over 40 degrees Celsius, and it's still spreading. And with this, I will give a third factor, which I feel also from talking to people that is probably the most important thing internally, is the trust we have in the media. The media, our way of finding out what's going on. And I hear a lot of mistrust in the media, in what information is being spread, in what measures are being taken, the way they are communicated, some questions or gaps that are left unanswered. Confused information. I don't want to paint a picture that's totally black, but the message here is definitely that there is not full trust in the information that is relayed to the public.
Let me jump on this because I've been spending some time also through different news in different countries. There is some countries that are really taking this seriously. And as Louis said, the first thing is about health. And so they have been really transparent from the beginning and telling them, okay, this is what's going on, this is what we have to do. They put some priorities. Of course, there is the finance and the economic thing coming up after. We all know that some companies have been suffering from this. But for me is how the government and how also as individual have been disciplined with the virus. I'm really taking this as serious, you know. Living myself in a Balearic Island, you know, we've been apart from Spain and somehow, you know. So we have very low in terms of affected persons, you know. But slowly, when they start to put the phase 1, 2, and 3, slowly we have people coming because of course there is the summer coming, the tourism has to keep moving forward, and the economy has to jump, you know. But for sure, we all know that by September, October, a new wave is coming. Of course, there is the virus, but I will say the most important thing is the economy is going to drop again. I think for me is in terms of leading is really to help the people to really survive the second wave. Of course, there is the virus, but the second wave has in terms of leading those people try those journeys. Anyone wants to yes, go ahead.
I want to say something on this, which was my final point. It ties in, I think, very well, and then I'll give the floor to the next person. I think culture is very important, actually, in how we all deal with it. In Cyprus, we are a very warm peoples. We love hugging and kissing a lot. So it's really hard, and I'm also talking from personal experience, really hard to stay away from your loved ones, from your friends, from people you meet, you know, even to shake hands with a client. And by extension, again, the use of the mask. I've observed, you know, at the beginning of COVID in February, I was traveling in Asia and I observed that everybody was wearing a mask. Here, even in the middle of, you know, the highest number of cases, the days when we had a crisis going on, people were still not wearing a mask. I think it's you know, culture plays in with a lot of ways, and connecting with people, which is a hugely affected area in our lives by this COVID pandemic, is existentially important. So there is a whole anthropocentric conversation we could have there. How culture affects our connecting with people and how this have been impacted by COVID-19. I'll stop here and give the floor to the next.
It's actually a good thing because like Asia are so used to for years wearing the mask, for example, and have this kind of distance. But like in Europe, some other countries, we love, as you said, like kissing, hugging, shaking hands, and so on. It's really a new habit that we have to go through, you know. And are we ready for it? That's the most important question to ask. David, would you like to comment?
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm an Indian guy and I've lived in the UK. My wife is Chinese. One of my sister or brother-in-law lives in South Africa. My other brother lives in the United States in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I've got friends in about 70 different countries that I know them, not really connected, but I know them very well. And I just wanted to you know, pick up on points of there's a political system and there are the citizens, like how we said, we are the citizen, there's a political system. And every country, including the UK, we kind of rose a little bit later on in the day to catch up with a lot of things. And about 46,000 people have actually lost their lives in this country, you know, from very small numbers to really rising up. And then we looked at the people who actually died. as they were saying, the people with underlying health issues were more affected, people in homes, like, care homes and so forth. So the government straight away brought down a real clamping on everything while everybody was just moving around freely. Then suddenly the clamp down came. And what happened was, mentally, it affected people's movements and freedom. I mean, I live in an area where there is predominantly multicultural society from about 30 different nations just in this area, right? And if you go to one of the shops over here, even right now, if I walk down there, although we are supposed to wear a mask inside the shop, but actually all these people are just wandering around as though like nothing's happened. And I'm the guy with a mask on trying to obey the law. And I'm thinking, what is happening in people's mind, everybody's mind, and how are they personally responding to such things? Media and the statistics are shifting landscape. They change every day, and like your country, Cyprus, North and South, we have a United Kingdom, but we don't look very united at the moment because Scotland's doing its own thing. Wales wants to do their own thing. And then Ireland is out there, and there's England. So, and I'm just thinking, I'm having this pragmatic view because from day one, personally, I never bought into the mindset of this virus is going to get inside my head. It might attack my body, but not my mind. And what I did was I took the necessary precautions. Bless her, my wife. She's from China, and Chinese people, they obey orders even when they don't like it, right? So she went and bought 200 masks in the house, 200 masks. We got tons of masks, hand cleaners, food that will last us for a year. And I'm just thinking what's happening inside her mind to take this drastic action. And when I'm a very laid back guy. I live in a peaceful mindset practically 24 hours a day. And so we had this contrast between us. She was panicking and I wasn't. And she wanted me to panic with her and start putting the mask on, keep on washing the hand, wear gloves and this and that. And as somebody just said, it's a cultural thinking. Yeah. Now, culture shapes your thinking, and then the way you think is the way you behave. Yeah. And it's definitely showing in this country where we have 500,000 people on the beach down south, sunbathing, having fun, right during the lockdown time, because the sun came out. And I thought, are these people worried about their lives? But the government was worried because they have to take some action, but the people themselves weren't. So I came with the philosophy, and it's probably not the best one, but I'm just going to say to you guys, and edit it if you like it, but this is the way I lived, right? And I live this way, is that we are trying to avoid our life from dying, basically, right? We are trying to prolong our life by doing a lot of things which is important, our brain wants us to do. But I thought death has many doors to come through. And I had a little prayer because I'm a spiritual guy. So I prayed, say, God, if my time has come, and if coronavirus, irrespective of my mask and protection, is going to get me, it will get me. But if not, I will live. Now, that's my philosophy. It's not for everyone. But then I see people in this country are dying every day through obesity, diabetes, blood pressure, heart attacks, everything. No one's counting that death anymore, except for the COVID-19 deaths. Yeah. So to summarize, I feel like if fear is governing our lives, right? If fear governs our life, we will fear and be afraid of everything. We do not have political control. We can only vote in this country and get rid of one leader from the other. But as an individual, we need to take personal responsibility of our own behaviors. And as common sense would say, not necessarily a common practice, but common sense prevails. you will not put your hands into a fire without actually having protective clothing, right? So if you have to wear protective clothing, then wear one. Why debate about it? And that was my take. And hence, I had a COVID test about 6 weeks ago because my wife insisted I have a COVID test, which I did. And both of us were clear. So I just thought, this is not the first virus that has attacked us. It is dangerous, but it's not going to kill us, not every single person. What we need to be aware of, what is actually killing us from inside. The stress, the worry, the anxiety, the fear, the loss of income, all these things are eating people slowly but surely. And there are 2 coaches on this, or probably 3 coaches, or maybe 4 coaches on this program. We are here to empower people. And that is my message. You know what? Let's have a chat. Let's be sensible. Let's use wisdom, because wisdom prevails. And right? And let's not get into arguments and debates and fall out with each other, because families have fallen out with each other over here. Right? And fear is governed constantly, and the media plays on it. Right? So with that, I will end and say, if any of this makes sense, please take it on board. But if it doesn't, let it go.
Thank you, David. Very insightful. Yeah, it's true. And Justin just pointed out, the way you think is the way you behave. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Rosemary, would you like to come and share your thoughts?
It's interesting because the media here are definitely in 2 camps. To be honest, I couldn't tell you how many COVID cases there are on a national basis, because it's not that I don't care. It's just that right now I really don't give a damn. I can't do anything about it. So I try not to get involved too much. But the interesting thing was, I was watching the news. It's 10:30 p.m. here in Sydney. So I was watching the evening news, and one of the rare journalists who actually sort of tells it a little bit really as it is, said to us that COVID-19 hasn't even made it into the top 50 reasons that people have died in Australia since COVID-19 hit. Yeah, it's rising rapidly in Victoria at the moment, but that was because there was a lot of stupid things that went on down there, and it got out of control. But that was, purely people doing people things and being ignorant of other people's safety. So for me, I agree with David. I do all the safe stuff for myself when I am out. I wear a mask when I'm in the shop, even though it fogs the glasses up, and I feel like I should be at a masquerade ball or something. But I don't buy into the we're all doomed, it's all gloom, it's all, let's go and try to fit ourselves out for a coffin. I can't buy into any of that, because it's not the way I was raised to think, and it's not how I think now as an adult. As David said, if death knocks on my door and it comes in the shape of COVID-19, well then that's the way I was meant to go out. Myself, I plan to live till I'm 310, because that to me seems like a really good number. And I know the human system can actually, the human body can actually live for a heck of a lot longer than what we believe we can. So it comes down to, for me, personal thinking, personal hygiene, and understanding that at some stage of every day, I am responsible 1000% for my own attitude. And the people I work with find out quite quickly that if they don't want to change their attitude, lift their attitude, get their own fear thinking out of the way, I just don't work with them. I tell them to come back when they're ready to actually have fun in this life, because that's what we're here for. We're here to live a lot, love a lot, and just simply enjoy the beauty that surrounds us, because the fear is going to always be there. I'm not putting my hand in a fire for anybody unless I've dropped a marshmallow in it and I want to get the marshmallow out. But other than that, I'm just not going to do it. You actually have to take control of something. And I can love without touching someone. It's a lot easier if I'm actually touching someone to give them a proper hug. But I'm over the doomsday stuff. I'm tired of people saying that financially we are ruined. We probably are, but that's probably not a bad thing either, because I think as a world, we were becoming too materialistic and not interested as much as we should be in our fellow human beings. And not giving of ourselves. I mean, it's pretty easy to open your purse and put $5 in a can, but that and walk on past. It's a lot harder to actually stop there and do something. So I'm all about the doing something regardless of the income. Yep. The outcome is far more important to me than what it's going to cost me personally or financially. And I think on the end of this, we'll actually all be better off as people, as a humanity, than we were when we went into it, because we'll actually find out what's really important. Like, picking up a brand new baby. By the way, I've got a brand new goddaughter. She's now 6 weeks old. Her name is Ava, and I'm kind of in love with her. Even though all I've ever seen of her so far is photos, because she's not actually supposed to be born until 10 days back, so she's still in hospital, and she's very, very tiny, but she's still beautiful. So it's just like, at the end of it, Ava is more important than any dollars that I've got in the bank. I can't buy her life, but I can give her lots of love.
Yeah.
So
good. I'm getting two things from what everybody have been saying. Is there are two aspects. There is the one from the government, how they put responsibility from the beginning, and also as a human being, how they take responsibilities. Some people are really doing well during the lockdown, the COVID-19, and all the process. Because again, as David said, is how you behave with that, and how you take responsibility to your own and moving forward. And there is some other people, they really suffer from it and feel really affected, even if they're not affected by the virus, but affected from the external environment. And for me is, how do you see that? How do you take it, the virus, in terms of your health, of your business, your personal life? And again, you have said, another thing is, there is a lot of people have other sickness, like people are dying from war, people are dying from cancer, for other stuff. But we totally forget about them. What about them? In terms of, I would say, of numbers, there are bigger numbers that what we are facing right now with the virus. But we forget. Why we forget? That's another thing. But still, as human beings, we definitely have to take responsibilities. Even if the government are putting something, that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's how we move forward with it. And how things will keep our lives, whatever it is, life is here. It's not the end of the day. We have to work with it, travel with it, and do the things with it. And I'm not gonna stop hugging my friends, check my clients' hands, and so on. So that's me. Maybe it's me, but for me, it's not the end of the world. It's another wave that we have to keep moving forward. George, I see you smiling. Tell me.
I was just wanting to know. I love Miss Rosemary's comment.
Yes.
And so the first thing that came to my mind when she made the statement about, you know, putting her hand in the fire is, I want to know, how do you like your marshmallows?
I'll just if I have to.
I got you. Yeah. You know, for me, you know, there's a little bit that everybody said that I really agree with, and obviously Justin, you know, and I think have a little bit of the same energies when it comes to these type of things. When it comes to health before economy, you know, that statement is basically saying put people before profits. And I believe whenever I look at leadership, you know, whether it's from a political standpoint, our leadership within our government, down to you know, the community, I believe leading through crisis, and from a mindset of a business entrepreneur mindset, leading through crisis really requires people to take long view as opposed to managing the present. And I think the difference between some of the responses that we see within families, within communities, local communities, and then government officials is that there's a lack of anticipation for what's coming next week or next month, and even next year, in order to truly prepare, you know, from an organizational standpoint, for changes ahead. And I truly believe that we have to learn how to delegate, number one, and then number two, trust the people as they make tough decisions, providing the proper support and leadership based on, you know, the experience, while resisting the temptation essentially to try to take over. I think from an ownership standpoint, from my standpoint, sometimes it's in me just to take over a situation, not necessarily being an expertise over it, but because we're addicted to the control of making sure we understand where we're going. And so I believe understanding, you know, what you're doing and where you're going, and the why in crisis is huge. I truly believe crisis doesn't make you. And you know, that statement, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Surely the experience of these crises makes you better, but crisis doesn't make you. Crisis reveals you. And so if you're looking at it at a leadership standpoint, whether you have a prime minister, whether you have a president, whatever it may be, a government official, there's not going to be some miraculous miracle where they have things organized and dealing with crisis. It's just going to reveal who they truly are. And so if you are not in a position of leadership where you have control, where you have patience to see the problem, find people around you. Listen, if I have a crisis and I know that Sonia or Justin or Louise is smarter than me, I'm not just going to make a decision. I'm going to reach out to somebody who's been through a crisis situation like we've experienced, and then say, how do I now incorporate this change, these policies, these expectations within the community without over centralizing the response, which is going to create a huge risk, right? And pushback. And so in the States, you have a lot of resistance. And we're talking not even just from the community, we're talking here in Georgia, the mayor is setting, you know, expectations, and then the governor is saying something totally opposite. And so our government officials are not even in sync. And as we all know as leaders, if you are not in sync in one voice, one vision headed in the same direction, you're going to have chaos. You're going to have something that obviously looks like a mess. And I think, you know, we see that within our system here. And then ultimately for me to feedback off of what Justin said with the health before economy is that I think we forget about the human factors. And while it may seem obvious, you know, crises are crises because they affect people. I truly believe as leaders can instead become trapped by focusing on the daily metrics of share price and revenue and cost. And although these are important, but they are the outcome of the coordinated efforts of people, right? And so the solution is to unite people in their efforts and their goals as valuable members and a cohesive team, and really try to start to move towards the common. And you do that through clearly articulating the mission that infuses the work with purpose. And so when you don't have purpose, you have problems. And right now, you know, what is the big purpose? We can talk about numbers, you know, all day long here in the States. and say that, yes, we're at 4.83 million confirmed, 159 deaths. Over 11 million people have been able to get out of the COVID and heal from this process. We can talk about the numbers all day long, but I think when it comes to leading through crisis, what is needed from a leadership standpoint is understanding what is the true value. And sometimes we value the dollar sign versus the humanity sign. And I think that gets lost. And so that's my rant. I think, this crisis is not going to make anybody special. It's going to reveal who you truly are.
That is good. It's absolutely right, and some people are really rebuilding themselves because of the crisis. It reminds me like a failure. When people fall, they jump back again because they have learned from it. And I truly believe if everybody learned from what we are all experiencing, we will become better more again and again and again. Thank you. Thank you so much, George. Anyone would like to say something before we move to Q&A?
Maybe one thing that we shouldn't forget is that, I agree with almost many of the that they say, George and Christina and Louis said, but one important point we shouldn't forget is that sadly, we are still in the middle of the pandemic. So I would say, it's probably too early to draw any conclusion. For example, in our case, in the case of Italy, now I'm talking of the country, well, 5 months ago, Italy was a kind of a black sheep of the Western countries. In March, other countries were closing borders to the travelers coming from Italy, and Italy in March was considered something like a gate for the COVID in the Western world. Now, in this current phase of the outbreak, I read an article that became very famous here in Italy. It's by Nobel Prize Paul Krugman. If you want, I will share with you in the chat on the New York Times. And this article say, why can't Trump's America be like Italy? So now it looked like we became a good example. But now, for example, today's news said that the contagions start to increase again. And for example, from yesterday, we have plus 384. Before we got up to 100 or something. So it's kind of second wave of COVID outbreak in Italy. So now situation is fluid. So I don't know, maybe we will have an exact idea of what is when we look at this from far in terms of time. This is one point that maybe somebody agree with this. Another point is I doubt on the reliability of the data provided about COVID by governments, at least by some of them. So because it's quite easy to for example not to count the death by COVID. To attribute the death cause to COVID rather than to another reason. And this way, it's easy to alter the statistics provided by country. Or, for example, another way is to avoid to test some cases that have the symptoms. So maybe the situation will be worse. So maybe in 1 year, for example, we will analyze the mortality curves by age, for example, in each country, and we have we will discover a completely different scenario. This is another point that that we shouldn't forget. I don't know. How do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's, sorry, I've been having an echo. So yeah, it's a lot of things going on, and let's see how we're gonna move forward. That's my thing. And everybody has saying on the chat a lot of common thing is it's time to lead, time to see who is ready to challenge what we are facing, and how we can move forward with this. It's to, yeah, that's what I'm getting from it. Anyone would like to say something before we move to Q&A? Luis. No. Vale, perfecto. Anyone has, we saw that we have few people. Yes, go ahead, Christina.
Just one thing, I agree with Patrizio. We you know, we're still in the middle of it. If you can say we're in the middle of it. Some countries are having second waves already. It would be really interesting to have this chat again in a few months' time. That's what I wanted to say, and see if we have the same views.
Yeah, that's what my point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, nobody knows what's happening tomorrow, and we can all secure about today. From now, we move what we have, what we own, and it's definitely sure that let's see in 6 months how things will be in terms in the worldwide view. Definitely. We have few guests here. Anyone would like to ask questions or say something? Maya would like to say.
I would if you want me to.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we usually got a few things to say, right? Okay, so let's give you a little bit of background here, guys. I'm a serial entrepreneur, build a bunch of stuff, kind of a polymath, and I like solving problems, right? So I've been obsessed with COVID now for the past, since 5 months, since March. I'm a data-driven guy, so I dove into the data. I put together a coalition to solve problems. I worked out the entire workflow of the gestation period all the way down to the end of COVID, and now it basically, what it does at different points on a macro basis, what it does to society, and then also what it does to the individual and how they're treated. So there's two main points here that I've discovered. Number one is a big part of COVID is it triggers what's called hypoxia, right? Which is basically your lungs get coated, the alveoli get coated. We breathe 20% oxygen from the air, okay? And you lose oxygen ability to go into your body, and then your cells start dying and your organs start dying. This is where an oxygen concentrator comes into place to make up for the loss of of intake. The ventilators that they started using in the front, when they were talking about them, you put a tube down their throat, it agitates things, and by the time they get to that point, there's about an 87-90% chance of them dying. So you want to hit them before they get to that point. There seems to be a cliff based on the data research that I was looking at. If patients are coming in some of these reports above 95% oxygen saturation level, they basically had like a 97% chance of living. Okay, now get this: they came in under like 92, 81% chance of dying. That's how big the oxygen deal is. Okay, if you look at a lot of the treatments, let's say like the fingers going blue and the toes and the blood clots, a lot of these, if you look at just hypoxia, they're the same type of symptoms. So it seems like COVID is triggering that, right? So there is no silver bullet to solve COVID, no matter what you do. However, if you get access to oxygen right away, it makes sense, right? I mean, it's just common sense. If you stick a bag over your head or pillow on your face and you're suffocating, there's only so long you can handle that before you pass out and die. So there's this strange thing called silent hypoxia that's occurring, in which people are literally suffocating due to COVID, and the signals not being sent to the brain, so they're suffocating, cells are dying. So in doing this research and talking to many doctors, I've actually interviewed and hosted sessions similar to this one with Dr. Summer, who was in New Jersey, epicenter, over 100 patients when the strike happened. Dr. Brian O'Neill, who's the vice chair of SUNY with over 300 patients a day. Oxygen, that's the number one deal. Now, here's the problem. Even if every single hospital in the United States had unlimited access to oxygen, just an oxygen supply, we simply do not have enough supply of beds with access to oxygen in the medical infrastructure to meet the demand of the economy wide open. However, if we do open up the economy, and we have basically, how do we get that supply demand met? Well, get this, 75%, some of this, 75% of the hospitalized patients just require high flow oxygen and then they recover. So if we could shift that number over to the home care, right? Multiple things will happen. Number one, they'll get access to oxygen quicker, meaning the recovery rates are better. You just remove 75% of the load off the hospitals. People are at home, COVID doesn't spread as much. And you just basically have these concentrators around that they can hook up to. You'll use telehealth to remotely monitor the patients and then take them to critical care when they need it. So now we've pretty much balanced out the supply demand problem. And then we basically can get economists. I already got a group going right now, economists and doctors that we're building up to basically do analysis based on the how many people are in an area. We have data right now of what the rate of infection is, what's going on. So you do this statistical analysis, identify how many beds there are in a specific location, how many concentrators you need to deploy, what you could do with the economy to open and shut it down. So in my opinion, based on what I'm hearing, right, I understand of the health first instead of the economy. I don't think that, you know, my opinion on this and the research is that they're not, they go together, right? What we're doing is we're not looking at the long-term effects of what occurs when 50 million people lose their jobs and 20 million of them instantly lost insurance, nothing, right? All the effects of that. We're really not being rational, guys, in my opinion, right? If you look at the actual data, the death rates, right? The numbers are 57% are above the age of 80, 23% are above the age of 70, and 10% above the age of 60, meaning 90% of the death rates is from people above the age of 60, 80% above the age of 70. To get a true analysis of how this has truly impacted us, what you really need to do is kind of look at the historical death rate and understand people in the elder years, what happened, how many were going to die typically anyway, and what's the delta between that and now. And that's how you'll understand what COVID's effect is. Because a lot of times we hear COVID this, COVID that. That's why a lot of these elders have passed away. Well, really? I mean, what if they got the flu or the cold? And, you know, those things also cause death, right? So there's got to be a balance there, right, between the two. So this is why we did this SHIELD mission initiative. Basically, you know, I said, okay, you know, everybody thought I was nuts, but it's okay, I'm gonna go create an oxygen concentrator. It's a DIY model that's a high flow 15 LPM machine that's gonna produce over 90% O2 that using common parts that a refugee could build using tie straps and other things. And everybody thought, of course, I was bananas. And we did it in about a month and a half. We got the first deal working. I mean, Sonia and Justin can tell you how this has been going on right in our pillar tribe. We've now had, in the last few days, 22 countries that want to launch and deploy this. Lots of government agencies are wanting to get involved. We got tons of doctor support. Any doctor you can think of has actually supported this initiative, right? So we need a common sense approach at the economy and what's going to happen. Now, if you, I've studied the 1918 pandemics, and if you study elder pandemics, they do come in waves, okay? Now, everybody, once again, is considering just the death rate. They're not looking at what really happened. So in my opinion, what I think, or my hypothesis is that whenever the second wave comes, and we're still in the first wave, this is not the second wave yet, guys, we're still in the first wave, okay? When it goes down for everybody else down to like pretty much zero, that's when the first wave finishes, right? But when you're having what we're having, this is the first wave. So if you look at the historically and you look at the different waves and they come in, you know, patterns, and the fall one and we're going to have coming is going to be significantly worse. Got the flu in there, other deals. So I think what will happen is look at what just happened to us from a societal perspective, and that will likely be the impact times 5, not just the death rate, but what we have seen. Okay, I do not think it's justified for us to basically sacrifice the future of the majority of the population for the sake of decreasing the death of individuals who are going to die in a few years anyway, right? I mean, I'm just going to be straight, like, you know, legit about it, okay? so studying has not happened. The media is just focused on, I mean, at the end of the day, what is news, right? I mean, they're just basically, they call themselves an entertainment channel. They're basically just a gossip deal that incite division between us, right? So it's up to us to actually kind of find solutions and work together. So you guys here, if you know anybody that wants to join this coalition that we're doing, you know, reach out to Sonia and Justin. We've got over 250 members right now, Fortune 100 executives, a few billionaires, scientists, engineers, and it's a really great coalition. And there's a lot to it, right? As an example, there's only 50,000 ambulances in the whole United States. So with the big surge, we're not even gonna be able to have transport stuff, right? We got some PPE solutions for the masks, a variety of different things. So it's important, I think, that we study, all right, all of us and people, look at the facts, look at the data, and make rational decisions. Make some tough decisions. We got to make some tough decisions, right? Of this shutdown, in my opinion, this is just like taking a gun and shoot yourself in the head. I mean, I'm just going to be, you know, and it's not fair. If you look up at the social unrest that's going to happen, I mean, it looks like all of us here, we're probably well off, right? The vast majority of people, they in the lower income brackets, they can't do work at home stuff. There's a moratorium on their tax, on their mortgages, on their rent, and those are starting to expire. They're still going to owe the money. Evictions are way up, right? And they're using their credit cards. I think we just had the largest wealth transfer in the world. We're not seeing these stimulus things. That's not. It's called printing money out of thin air. Okay, that's what that really is called. So whenever you do that, you actually tax the entire population because you decrease the buying power when you do that. So all of these individuals, we decrease their buying power. Consumer expenses are down, so we haven't seen that hyperinflation yet, but that's coming. And all these wealthier folks are basically building up war chests. Okay, I mean, I know that I'm one of those wealthy guys, right? I mean, I've built worldwide franchise systems, and you know. I'm grateful to God for having the opportunity to be successful. I came here when I was an immigrant, lived in a very kind of low-income, poor place. So people get murdered in front of me and drugs everywhere, and I was able to kind of rise that social ladder. So I kind of know what it's like to live at the very different levels. And there is a complete and utter disregard to individuals that just can't eat and can't work because they can't eat. Like you just tell them, stay home, right? This is going to be different than 2008. In 2008, you had people buying more homes than they should. Now you have a lot of white collar, blue collar, hardworking people. They're about to lose their homes, right? And the media is just, in my opinion, full of BS. Okay, when they sat here and you got these people, when they first started protesting, they're like, "Hey, we can't eat. We need to work and eat." And then they would get the what's it called, the town idiot, right? That they find, they put him on TV. Oh, I don't believe in science and all this stuff. And then they use that person to represent everybody else. Okay, they've done that a few whiles now. And when you see people coming out with guns, okay, militias and stuff like that, you got to take that pretty seriously. It's the Fed anticipating 1 out of 3 people without a job, right? There's 1 out of 3 people that can't eat and survive. Yeah, what are they going to do? In southern Italy, well, I heard somebody here was from Italy, right?
Yeah, Patrizio.
Patrizio, yeah, I read a report where they basically, they're pretty smart. This is actually very interesting. They couldn't pay for things, so they would go on social media and basically form groups of like hundreds and say, okay, on this day, we're going to go hit the supermarket and go grab food, right? So they just walk in and go get food and walk out. And it's pretty actually intelligent. I mean, if I was in that class, I couldn't feed my kids. I could do the same thing. You told me don't stay home. I'm going to go get food for my kids. So these things are not being really looked at, you know, as far as on a macro level and what the effects are going to be. The elites, the well-to-do are looking at this information. The doctors themselves, it's not their fault either, right? These epidemiologists and doctors and the people who are studying COVID, they look at this through their narrow lens, right? Like they're looking at how do you stop this epidemic and whatnot. But we have to take into consideration all the different components of what's going to happen when we make decisions like shutting down an entire economy. And we should do it in a more rational way. Doesn't mean you just shut everything down. You know, we're almost going to these extremes. So I think that, you know, the 2 points there is 75% move them out, right? $1 to $3 trillion is what we're looking at right now and deal. This solution could basically be rolled
sorry
out.
to interrupt you. We're gonna stay a long day with you talking about this. Anyone has a questions because we moved over the time. Yes, I saw that. Rosemary was saying, my real concern in regards to COVID-19 is the impact on mental and emotional well-being long-term, the impact of financial strain in welfare over the next decade. So there is more questions. No. Anyone wants to say something before we end up the call? I know we have Maria Antoniades, Kyle Wainwright. Do you have any questions since you're here with us?
No questions. I just wanted to partake and hear everybody's input. More or less same background, same. I'm from South Africa, so we've been one of the hardest hit countries. And it's a bit of what everybody said, like David, like Patrizio, like Mahir. It's a cultural thinking, it's leaders eat last, but unfortunately in the big organizations, you know, that kind of thing, they don't think of the lower hierarchies and the vulnerable groups, like Christina was saying. So, you know, this unfortunately has a ripple effect and a butterfly effect, and, you know, we just have to wait it out.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria, for sharing what's happening also in your country. Kyle, I know you're here. Would you like to say something before we end the webinar? Hello, is it Kyle over there? Okay. All right. Anyone would like to say? Yes.
So, hey, you know, we've got a lot of great people on here. I mean, if we don't mind, do you think people could just kind of drop in maybe their profiles to their LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Basically, link their profiles in the chats.
Yes. What we will do, Maya, on the LinkedIn, we have created a group. You can, everyone can connect to each other. That's definitely possible. And again, when I'm gonna share the video by tomorrow, again, you can connect with anyone here. That's absolutely possible. And of course, I see that some few people have been sharing the link in. Please feel free. Thank you for all being here, for answering all the questions and share your feedbacks and big hugs virtually, as Justin been doing. Hugs and kisses to everyone. Thank you again for being here, and looking forward for the next episodes. Thank you.